Hello and welcome to a look at Shadow of the Beast 3 for the Amiga, a game that was made by Reflections and was released by Psygnosis. Shadow of the Beast 3 is the third and final chapter in the Shadow of the Beast trilogy, and the plot is something along the lines of after the events of the second game even, someone apparently was able to complete that game. Our hero, called Airborne, collapses, and while he's asleep, he starts dreaming, and in his vision dream thing, he gets contacted by this elderly gentleman, telling him that he used to be the king's magician and was the guardian of dark and light and good and evil and all that kind of stuff. And he blames himself for not seeing Maletoth, the name of the bad guy, rise up to power in time to try to stop him. And when they finally realized it was too late and he was imprisoned, and it is only because of the hero defeating the second game that Maletoth's power was weak enough for the elderly gentleman to get in touch with Airborne. So he tells Airborne that he has to gather 4 items in order to become powerful enough to finally face off against Maletoth. And then he tells him that his transport awaits. And if you didn't skip the intro, you saw that he was sitting in a plane that, of course, had to crash. The game, much like its predecessors, is a platform-ish puzzle, trial and error game, but unlike the previous 2 games, the puzzles are not nearly as convoluted as they were or could be in the earlier games, and the levels themselves are significantly smaller in overall area, which is a good thing. And where you need to go and that kind of stuff is a lot more guided than it was in the previous games, which all adds to a overall much more enjoyable experience than the previous games. Our hero starts out with some shurikens for some bizarre reason. That was the weapon of choice apparently. But as he progresses through the different levels, he can pick up other weapons such as grenades and that kind of stuff. The levels you play through has an overall objective, which is to find whatever item in question. There are 4 items, by the way. I dare not to try to pronounce the name of half of them, so suffice to say, on this first level we need to get a skull. There's also some gold you can pick up, and even though you will not fail a level for not picking up all the gold, there's a certain indication that you need to pick up all the gold, or maybe it's just a bonus incentive or completionist incentive, but I'm fairly sure you need to pick up all the gold. So the game will allow you to progress, but you might find yourself being boned at one point or another if you haven't picked up all the gold. There are 4 levels in total, and you can start off playing the first or the second level, and if you beat either of those 2, you can start playing the 3rd level and so on. So you can get to practice the different levels to a certain point and get used to the different puzzles and try to solve them and whatnot. But as I was mentioning, the puzzles are not nearly as convoluted as in the earlier games. Let us talk technical stuff. From a graphical point of view, a lot of people seem to have very different opinions about this game. Certain people saying it's super epically awesome, and certain people saying it's outright rubbish. It is supposed to be graphically the weakest of the three games, but personally, I find that I enjoy this graphical style a lot more than I did with the earlier games, and maybe some not so brown grayish tones would have been nicer, but I actually quite enjoy the graphical design of this game. And our hero, it doesn't look remotely beastly anymore, of course. Resembles some sort of Indiana Jones with a backpack, which I suppose is not too bad. The animation of the main character specifically is top notch, and I'm really appreciating that, because that was one of the issues I had with the first game, was that the animation of the beast felt very, very stilted, but in this game it feels very, very smooth and fluid. So I'm quite happy with the graphical side of things. The sound effects are good. They're not super epically awesome, whatever, but they are of a very high quality. And the fact that you have a satisfying little pling when you do a puzzle bit right, it's nice that the game will give you some sort of confirmation that you are on the right track in what you are trying to do. On the music side, the music of specifically the first game was absolutely epic, and the music in this game's quality is equally as high as it was in the first game, but maybe not at the same level of epic composition thing. But I do find that I enjoy the music in this game as much as I did in the first game. And of course it doesn't have moments of complete bonkers wonkiness like specifically the first game's music had. I'm not referring to the second game because it's complete and utter garbage. Controls-wise, it's very, very responsive. Our hero is doing what he's supposed to be doing when you tell him to do what you want him to do. Moving left, moving right, going up, going down, showing whatever he's got equipped, whether it's throwing stars, bombs, grenades, whatever else it might be. And the controls are very responsive, and hit detection seems to be perfectly spot on. That of course leaves us with the gameplay, and I'm actually happy to say that this game's got gameplay. Compared to the two first games, this is a lot more streamlined, and the effort in this game has definitely been put into emphasizing the gameplay that was sorely lacking in the first two games, and certain people seem to be very, very happy with it even. And certain people seem to be in two minds about it and that kind of stuff, but ultimately when you're playing a game of any kind, it doesn't matter how good it looks or sounds if the gameplay is garbage, because at one point or another the graphics are not going to impress you anymore, the sound effects are not going to make you jump for joy, and the music is not going to make your feet tap on the floor in rhythm to it. At one point or another, you need the gameplay to pull the heavy lifting, and thankfully I can say that this game's got gameplay, and because of the small scale of the levels and the more logical setup of the puzzles, and the fact that you have a confirmation song, as I was saying, telling you that you're doing something right, I actually found that I enjoyed this game, which is something that surprised me. I expected more of the same from the two earlier games, but this one's actually not bad at all. Overall, the Shadow of the Beast trilogy will always be remembered for its graphical side and musical side to some extent. But Shadow of the Beast 3. It's not necessarily a game I could see myself playing for any length of time, but I can see that it can be completed, which is infinitely more than I could say about the two first games. On that note, thanks for watching, take care, see you next time. Bye bye for now.